In this lesson, we're going to learn composition, which is the relationship between the format, the object, and the space around them. I'm going to teach you how I do composition, and I'm going to explain how to use them for your own work. The first thing is understanding the kinds of composition. They're harmonic, static, minimalistic, chaotic, and you'll see that these compositions that I'm saying are based on adjectives, which are related to the message. So if your message is meant to be a bit more muted, then you'll use a minimalist composition. If you want your composition to be energetic, then you have a more energetic composition. These are just examples of some compositions. You identify by your message, and you are free to use any composition that you want. The combinations are endless. In this part, I'm going to show you some examples. These again are no rules, and you are free to use all of these or your own. So, I'm going to start by drawing some boxes. I am going to have horizontal compositions at the top and vertical formats at the bottom. For the purpose of this lesson, I'm just going to use shapes for you to identify the elements I want to have. Imagine that this is title, subtitle, maybe name of the author, year, and number. These are very static composition. Using the same elements, how we can make it more dynamic. Maybe is title, subtitle, name of the author, number, and year. And maybe we want to have it a bit more dramatic. Maybe we have title, subtitle, author, number, and year. On the left side, we have something that it feels a bit more conservative. It feels a bit more stacked. It's something that it could be easier to understand and read because we have straight lines that are following the format. Everything is horizontal. On this one, that is a bit more dynamic, we have tension from point to point from the title here, subtitle, and we're mixing it with the name of the author here. These two elements are just anchor points to the composition on the base. On this one that is a bit more chaotic, we're including a path for the title, the subtitle, the author, and these two elements in here. You'll see that there's not really a hierarchy, and it feels indeed chaotic. The compositions that I show you are just, if you see, quite rough. This is something that I do at the beginning of my projects. I try to use just regular shapes, nothing informative, just a couple of lines, just to understand how the composition could be or should be. This is something that I highly recommend you to do in your preliminary sketches once you do your project. So once we have this part, I'll try to do the same but with a vertical format. Static in here with a composition that is a bit more minimalistic. Maybe we have more space in between the format and we have this text here. Maybe we have two elements here, and you see that the space between these two parts and these two parts is quite broad. Now, we're going to have something that it feels more dynamic, and we're going to have this straight line here with the same element here, another element here. As in here, now we can split it in two lines. Maybe this part goes here, and a couple of elements here. You'll see that the shapes itself have changed because of the format. So instead of going horizontally, we're going vertically or in diagonal, as is in this part. So in these compositions, we have minimalist, dynamic, something more chaotic. The first thing that you'll notice is that some of these elements have changed direction. In this case, in comparison of this one, we change the shape to a diagonal. This is more extreme, and these two elements are smaller. As in this case, we needed to break this line into two pieces and move the elements on the top and the bottom. Even if this is too rough, you'll see that format is informing the shape as we saw in our previous lesson. On the format that is more chaotic, maybe you take that as an opportunity to mix match fonts. A bit more crazy, a bit more out of the box, and have maybe a sans serif and a serif and more illustration, or maybe more paths. So this part, because it's chaotic, it feels freer to explore. One thing that I can recommend is understand your message first. For instance, in the example of the book cover, we are having a title and subtitle and a couple of other elements. Once you have that done, then you take your paper, a couple of pens, draw some boxes, and start doodling inside them. In this example that I show you, I'm using a horizontal and a vertical format that are both very square. Think of packaging. In packaging, we have different shapes and formats, irregular shapes mostly. On a label that is irregular, at the end we'll have a horizontal or a vertical composition, and that's the key for you to start sketching. Now that we have learned about composition, in the next lesson, I'll walk you through one of my case studies using one of my labels. In here, even with a regular shape, I'll show you how you solve using composition that is regular, irregular, horizontal, and vertical.